Rushi Sunak, the diminutive, diminished and degraded British Prime Minister, clearly hasn't assimilated well enough. Otherwise, he'd have known that members of Parliament in Britain are chosen by the voters, by the electorate in democratic elections. They are not chosen by little Napoleon stunts outside the number 10 Downing Street, where standing on an exceedingly tall platform, Rushi Sunak lectured the British people on how alarming it was that they had voted for me. And not just in Rochdale. It has emerged through all the medium possible, in the comments on newspaper articles, in the comments under mainstream media videos. It has emerged in a mailbag, thousands and thousands, and I mean thousands, of pieces of correspondence strong, that the spark lit in Rochdale on Thursday was a spark whose time has come, and the tinder lies all over this country. The truth is, when you've got a political class that demonstrably is two cheeks of the same backside, that almost identical Tweedledee and Tweedledum politics, that millions feel locked out of the political democratic process. Usually they have no choice. Indeed, the parties count on them having no meaningful choice, no ability to affect the political direction of the country either way. They count on that. But when someone comes along with experience, with some God-given ability, and with the credibility to present themselves as a possible winner, a slayer of the dragons, well, poodles of Labour and Conservative, then they are ready to go for it. Nigel Farage proved it with his Brexit party victory in the last European Parliament elections in Britain. And we proved it all over again in Rochdale on Thursday. When people get a chance to whack that two-cheeked ass, they take it, they do it. And it has resounded, that spanking, all over the country. And I know I can prove that I am going to Parliament overnight tonight with the good wishes, the goodwill, and the high hopes of millions of British people, hitherto unrepresented or underrepresented by the mainstream political parties. A beauty has been born. All is changed utterly. And I intend to drive home the point. I will attempt to rise at Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. I expect the Speaker will call me, as I'm the Member of Parliament with the freshest and biggest mandate in the House. And I'll be asking both of these twins, these diminutive toddler twins, Sunak and Starmer, if they are listening, if they have heard the British people. Early signs are that they have not. Although I want to throw into the discourse my reading of what is currently underway and the reason why I think the British general election will not be long delayed. It seems to me, from the little lectern stunt outside 10 Downing Street, that Rushi Sunak, despairing of all else, has happened upon what he thinks will be a wedge issue between him and Labour. That wedge issue is the M word, Muslims. Gaza is the proximate cause. But when Sunak said what he said about the threat to British democracy, a bit rich coming from a little man for whom no one has ever voted, and whose foreign secretary in charge of Britain's foreign policy is also an unelected member of the House of Lords. But democracy, mobs, Muslims, all the M's, the fanaticism, extremism, and other bad words that are now attributed to Britain's 4 million Muslims is not random. It is not disassociative thinking. It is not something that just occurred to him on his Royal Air Force flight at great public expense from Aberdeen to London to make what was a blatantly party political stunt outside number 10 Downing Street, something I intend to have inquired into. It didn't just occur to him as he flew from Aberdeen to London. It's a plan. It's a fiendish plan. It's a plan that is pregnant with all kinds of disruption to Britain's social peace. For example, banning marches for Gaza, restricting people's right to protest, cracking down even further on people's right to freedom of speech. And it was a cue, probably a coordinated cue, for the release, the sluice gates to open, for the release of millions of words worth of anti-Muslim sewage in the ever-dependable British media, from the gutter media to the fur coat and no knickers media. All of them were filled with the same basic poisonous narrative that Britain has a Muslim problem, that British Muslims are violent, that they are potentially terrorist, and that these marches over Gaza are radicalizing the population of Britain, contaminating non-Muslims, who of course are the majority in the marches and demonstrations on every single march in the country. This is a very important caveat to make. Most of the people, 73% of the British population, who demand an end to the slaughter in Gaza are not Muslims at all. They are white English people. They are white Scottish, Welsh, and Irish people. They are not people from the subcontinent or other British former colonies. But the narrative is that these people are being radicalized, extremized by the Muslims within. Although, when asked on television this morning, as he was in full flow about it, Jeremy Hunt, I said, the Chancellor of the British Exchequer, when asked, who are these Muslim organizations that you say are hijacking the demonstrations against the war on the people of Gaza every single weekend in this country, Hunt was unable to answer. For, of course, extremist organizations are there none. The vast majority, 99.9% of the people on these marches are entirely peaceful and democratic people. And the notion that by voting for the wrong candidate in a democratic election, that people have sabotaged democracy, endangered democracy, is of course a perversity only possible within the British political class. Voting for the wrong person now appears to be an act of extremism. And so stand by for that wedge issue to be driven home, for a gap to be opened up. Why does he think that might save the election for him? Because of my victory and because of the possibility of other such victories up and down the length and breadth of this country, he has placed Keir Starmer behind the 8 ball. If Starmer comes out fighting for the Muslims in Britain and for the rights to protest democratically, peacefully in Britain, and if he does that, I'm a Dutchman, if he were to do that, Sunak hopes that he will be able to capitalize on the incipient racism that the media will incessantly send pulsing through the British political airwaves and through the election run-up. If, on the other hand, Sunak joins in a kind of Dutch auction Starmer joins in a kind of Dutch auction with Sunak, vying with Sunak for how beastly, how mean, how punitive he can be against the so-called extremists, then a very substantial number of Britain's Muslims will vote for us, the Workers' Party of Britain, and vote for independence who are standing in constituencies from Ilford in the far east of London to Bethnal Green in the heart of the city of London, in the city of Birmingham, throughout the northwest, Bolton, Oldham, Bury, Tameside and Greater Manchester, Rochdale, of course, and many, Blackburn, many other places. If it's an election in which Starmer and Sunak are vying as to who can be more vile about the Muslims, then we will pick up the votes. Starmer will fail to win seats he had banked on winning, and Sunak might, against all odds, emerge as the Prime Minister again. But in so doing, they will scar the face of British politics. They will scar the face of British society. They will risk social peace in the country, and they'll make Britain as degraded and diminished as the two leaders of the main parties have become.